Hello, I'm Joe Walensky from Blink, meeting with some of the speakers from our upcoming ConveyUX event, and I'm talking today with Kel Smith. Hello, Kel, how are you?
Hello, thank you for having me.
And where are you talking to us from today?
I am just outside of Philadelphia.
All right, well, I'm in Seattle, and if you're not familiar with Kel, he's been active in the area of digital accessibility and e-health for quite a while. He's the author of the book Digital Outcasts, Moving Technology Forward Without Leaving People Behind. And Kel, you're going to be talking related to that subject. Your topic is what we can learn from digital outcasts. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about what people will see and learn from that?
Sure, absolutely, and thank you for the opportunity. So let me first explain the title, What Makes People Digital Outcasts? What I noticed in my 10 to 12 years of working in accessibility is that there's a real thought that accessibility is one of those things that we tend to think of as the last bullet point, the nice to have, the if we have the time, if we have the budget, if we get around to it, if Cal doesn't stop talking, any number of things. And so what happens is we run the risk of designing and developing technological experiences that leave people with disabilities behind in some form or another. And what I've noticed in my research is that some of these folks will wind up developing their own solutions in order to help them get along better. And I'll run through a number of case studies in my talk outlining some of those examples.
Now, as you've kind of progressed and worked in this area for a while, what are some of the biggest challenges that you encounter in terms of getting your point of view more widespread, broader acceptance of that?
It's a great question. It depends quite a bit. Many organizations, when they're trying to launch a new product or launch a reissue of a product, they are under some very tight timing and budgetary constraints. So I'd say the biggest challenge is getting people to think about accessibility as a design consideration early on in the product life cycle, as opposed to that bolt-on that happens later on. Even though doing it earlier does lead to some product benefit and definitely some financial and time benefits. So trying to get people to understand that and understand the value of that. And when I say value, not just greater good accessibility value, but also business value and design value. That's really the toughest component, which is why I did spend lot of effort in the book outlining how accessibility really does marry up with the innovation life cycle and what the two have in common, which is quite a bit.
Now, in a lot of areas like this, it can be sometimes difficult to acquire the specific skills and experience for organizations that haven't gotten involved in this. Do you have any suggestions on approaches that they can take to be able to bring that into their design shops?
Yes. One, I need to do a shout out to some groups like Nobility, KNOW, Nobility, and also WebAIM. They are fantastic organizations that do some terrific things in helping technology companies get better acquainted with the needs of accessibility and the practical aspects of how to implement that in their life cycles. But I would also say that one thing that's very important is to actually talk to people and actually get a sense of what it's like, and not to build empathy from the standpoint of pity, like oh the poor people with the disabilities, but understand how disability does impact people's lives, and how it impacts their ability to access fundamental human needs like voting or buying things online or applying for a job or applying for courses at a university. And it runs a wide gamut. I think one of the big assumptions that happens in this is we tend to demarcate people who have disabilities versus people who don't. And just by saying the term people with disabilities, we do that kind of by default, and I do that myself. But there's a wide continuum of nuances in terms of how people are able to sort of adapt their bodies and their minds and their outlooks to what's happening around them in the environment. And you know, there's a thing called situational disability. If we were talking in a bar right now and there's music playing and it's loud TVs and things, we'd probably be screaming at each other. I mean, that in a sense is a situational disability because at that moment we're both hard of hearing, even though we may not be in another context. So I'd say being a little more tuned into things like that really does help to build up the empathy necessary. It helps people to better understand and adapt accessibility to their product streams.
All right, great. Well, thanks for taking a few minutes to be able to meet with us, and we'll see you in Seattle in February.
I can't wait. I'm really looking forward, and thank you for having me.
All right, thanks a lot, Cal.
You got it.